Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. On this episode of World Talks, we focus on Serbia. Following the fatal November 2024 train station canopy collapse in Novi Sad, mass student-led anti-corruption protests intensified throughout 2025. And exactly a year ago, hundreds of thousands of people marched through Belgrade on March 15, 2025, in what is widely considered the largest protest in Serbia's history, marking a pivotal moment for the future of the country. Nikola Ćurčin, Vice President of the Independent Teachers Union of Serbia, joins me now to discuss the latest. So glad to have you here with us, Nikola, on this episode of World Talks. Now, it's been a year since the largest protest in Serbia's history. How significant was that march in Belgrade politically? And tell me what is going to, if anything, happen today?
Well, this protest is definitely a marking of change in a majority opinion in Serbia. So on this day, it was completely obvious that the current government does not have a majority support, which it had for almost a decade before. And also, this marked a new political force in Serbia, and that is this student-led organization that has been supported by many other parts of the society. So concretely today, there will not be a big rally. We had rallies in municipalities in Serbia yesterday because in 10 municipalities, there are local elections being held in 2 weeks' time, exactly on Sunday, 29th of March. So the focus now was on the political campaign in these places. What stays as a stain that is very strongly being not prosecuted is the use of sound cannon during the last year's protests, when during the commemorative silence, sort of a sound weapon was used against peaceful demonstrations. We had a UN report on that, but the government has not given information. Recently, we have been leaks about what happened on that day a year ago between police officials and the government officials, where some police officials were against use of such a weapon.
Has there been a proper investigation on that, Nikola?
Not really. The most of the prosecution, the people that have filed complaints and prosecution, this didn't happen. So the government denied, and it stayed on that. But it's been clear that something has been used, something that has never been used in Serbia before, and it has been confirmed that actually even that the Serbian police has such technical equipment in its possession.
Nikola, let me ask you. You did mention that Serbia is heading into those, into those elections. Let me ask you this: how would you describe the current political climate in Serbia since those protests took place last year?
Well, it's very hard, almost intolerable. So what we have is that actually no result of prosecution has been for the canopy fall and so many people that died. We had an investigation by the organized crime judiciary about embezzlement of around 100 million euros, but since then it's been a crackdown by the government on this unit, let's say a judicial unit, and even some laws have been changed. And this is also has been an issue because the EU administration, especially Marta Kos, has been very strongly criticizing this. So we are still waiting for the Venetian Commission to give its opinion about this. On the other hand, we have repression, constant repression, which I can, let's say, I can picture it this way. The repression goes two ways. One way is against the competition, or what the government, the regime thinks is competition. So it's against activists, It's coming into their houses, arresting, and stuff like that. We had actually
coming into their
one
houses
of
and
the
arresting.
cities.
Really, that is also taking place?
Yes, yes, exactly. Because this is how it works. Some sort of an intimidation. Usually, these people are let out from prison very soon. But this is an intimidation campaign. The last time we had in Aranđelovac, one of the biggest cities that is under elections, we had police because that day President Vučić was coming to Aranđelovac to have his own rally. So they came into the offices of the student movement and the local movement that is on the elections, and the police came in and said, "You got to get out. We are taking over. You need to go into your houses." But they then negotiated, and the police was constantly in their premises during the time this rally of the government was taking place. So basically, this is the situation. And the second part of the repression goes actually against those that were members or sympathizers of the party of the government in the previous years, and now they do not want to do this. They don't want to support. They change their opinion, but they are now under heavy pressure. This is something that comes from my trade union, let's say, experience on the field of education. So we had disciplinaries against employees in education, and you have two types of people being targeted. One are those that are publicly been criticizing the government, but also you have almost a similar number of those that did not want to take part in political rallies and political implications of the ruling party, and they used to be members of these parties. So this is how the repression now goes.
Let me ask you this. Let's talk about specifically for a moment Aleksandar Vuics. Tell me about how his response is to all of this, and particularly what is he hoping to achieve? I mean, for the outcome of these elections, and how do you think it's going to change Serbia?
I think there have been abuse of electoral laws. Let's say electoral fraud is ongoing. He's directly participating in local elections with his name on all the lists, which is not something allowed by the Constitution. And this is the thing that is happening. Well, I think he's hoping to hold on and wait for a miracle to happen, some other crisis in the world or something else. So the focus is off Serbia and Western Balkans, so he can continue to juggle between East and West and continue exploitation and corruption in Serbia.
But do you think that, depending on, of course, on the outcome and the result of those elections, how that will go, do you think we're going to see similar protests break out, not just in Belgrade, but around the country? And I mean, naturally, because to my understanding, right, is Serbians want answers on what exactly took place on Novi Sad. But is it, and you're talking about all these other things, all these repressions that are taking place. You mentioned corruption. What else do you think can happen in the worst case scenario?
Well, in the worst case scenario, we will have prolonged elections even before the time that is regular. So the next regular elections are presidential elections, which must take place around in about a year. So March, April next year. This is the deadline. This is the 5-year term, second 5-year term of Mr. Vučić is ending. And he cannot run for the term mandate under these conditions. So this is the deadline for the elections, but we do not know if this will also be prolonged. So they are prolonging as much as they can, and this I think is what might happen in the future in order to repress enough or to prepare for a large enough fraud. You probably remember Lukashenko's elections after protests in Belarus. So to have a sort of election fraud, which he will publicly say that he won, and he will defend this with force.
And let me ask you this: how do you think?
This is the worst case scenario how we see it, because if we get into this position, we will not have actually, let's say, a peaceful way to fight against this. Because if you steal an election and then forcibly want to enforce this, this will bring an escalation. That's definite.
What about the impact on everything that's going on in Serbia right now and on its foreign policy and just in general on Serbia's not only political stability, but also the economy? If you can just tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, well, these implications come mostly from our oil industry that is still running by month because it's owned by the Gazprom company. And there is a process of selling, but it didn't end. So we get a small licenses for 1 month to import oil to be refined in the refinery, and the buyer is now being considered as the Hungarian company MOL. So, but I think the finishing of this deal will be connected to the soon elections in Hungary. Because this is also important because who will run actually this Hungarian oil company that should buy the Serbian oil company, and this is affecting the economy. Also, on the foreign level, we had a demonstration of force by the government saying that they have bought Chinese air-to-ground missiles that can be deployed on fighters, Serbian fighters. And this has been announced. So there is also this talk of weaponizing, bringing up the military. And in the foreign policy regarding education, we had a presentation by the president that he said that our education should be like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. And Serbia has been part of Erasmus projects. I mean, program has been connected to the EU, is a candidate EU country. So this was a big surprise. This looks like a punishment for the education system. And he wants us to be like Kazakhstan.
Well, speaking of Kazakhstan, right, being a former Soviet republic, let me ask you this really quickly. What about Vucic's and his Russian ties? How do you think Russia is viewing this instability that's been unfolding in Serbia?
Well, I think it's always useful to have an unstable Balkans, and this is always a nice place to make a conflict and to diverse from the main situation. So this is how I think is viewed, and I think the whole region as Western Balkans is very connected. So when you change something in one part of the Western Balkans, if you look at what Vucic is doing, and he's being pretty much allowed to do it, or being not severely punished by the EU, this can transform to other countries. For example, Albania now has been in a very good position on corruption, but lately, after the initiatives that came at the same time by Vucic and Rama for the European Union to say that their countries can assess EU without having all the rights, after that, Rama decided not to prosecute corruption for one minister that's been arrested, not to allow that to happen. So it's a very connected region, and let's say, except for Montenegro, everybody is trying to avoid their obligations regarding corruption and regarding rule of law.
Thank you so much, Nikola Ćurčin, Vice President of the Independent Teachers Union of Serbia, for discussing the latest events unfolding in Serbia. Thanks for being with us. And thank you for watching this episode of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. I'll see you here next time.